Now that we've finished cutting on the Maslow M2, we can begin the final part of our project, the finish work. What we're going to do first is we're going to sand, then use a jigsaw to remove the coasters from the working material. Then we'll do a little bit of hand sanding to get rid of all the grooves left by the router. Then we'll stain, and finally we will epoxy the coasters. So as you can see, the drill bit didn't really leave a clean cut on these edges where the 1/4 inch bit went around. The 1/16 inch still left a little bit behind that it didn't quite cut out, but the main thing we have to do is get rid of these large chunks of wood. So we're gonna go back to the 220 grit sandpaper with the palm sander, knock all that down first, being really careful that the sandpaper doesn't get caught on these corners and tear. And then we'll go and cut out the pieces with our jigsaw. As you can see, it didn't quite get all the way through, but this is still rather thin, so it shouldn't be too hard to cut through our jigsaw. So for the next part of the finish work, we're going to continue to sand, and this time we're just going to do it by hand and continue to remove the extra wood fibers that were left behind by the router. And again, the 1/4 inch did, not such a great job, where the 1/16 inch didn't leave behind too much, just depending on the direction of the cut. When it was with the grain, it left a little bit more than when it was with against the grain, it left a cleaner cut. So we won't have too much to do there. And then there's only the finest little bit of waves left behind that we'll have to remove still. When working in between the letters for something that's this close together, I find it's easy to work with cheap drill bits that have a nice sharp edge to them, and that'll cut those right off. Now that we're finished removing all the wood fibers from our coasters, we can begin to apply a stain. I'm using a special walnut that's going to be a lot darker than what the rest of the grain is going to look like once it's all epoxied. And what that's going to do is provide a high contrast between the surface and what the cut is. That way you can really tell what the design is even from a distance. Last time I applied the stain to these coasters, I was using a brush with really thick bristles, so I had a lot of control over where the stain was going, but I still had a couple spots where I missed and got the edge, which resulted in the stain bleeding through into the rest of the grain. And we've done a 16th inch bit cut, so we have plenty of material to remove if that does happen. But because it's oak, the grain really likes to absorb the stain, so we want to try and eliminate that as much as possible. Alright, so we finished with the stain and my hands didn't get too messy, but unfortunately with the detailing of all the letters, we did have a lot of stain get where it wasn't supposed to. So we're gonna have to go back to the belt sander and take off a little bit, and hopefully we'll still have the contrast we want. Another thing I realized as I was staining was that the last time I'd used dark walnut instead of special walnut, so that provided a lot more contrast. So I might be considering just going and getting a can of dark walnut and restaining. But for another video.